Welcome everyone to the ins and outs of court class for April 2021. My name is Zen and I'm the headmaster of the Vocational Science of Freedom. The Vocational Science of Freedom is a curriculum of freedom that has 4 quadrants. You can tell by the symbol that the quadrants are self-reliance, self-awareness, self-governance, self-defense, with the core teaching being that we are all free sovereign people. That is the symbol for the Vocational Science of Freedom. And today's class will be in the aspect of self-governance. Thank you everybody for coming, and thank you everybody for supporting the Vocational Science of Freedom. With your support allows me to continue to do these teachings. The outline has been given in the group folder at the top here, and you can pick it up in the mega folder. And I said there's going to be a lot of information today regarding what we're going to go and cover. And there'll be more books given out with access. Obviously everybody has access to the Vocational Science of Freedom Free Law Library, who's a member of the Vocational Science of Freedom Gilded Server. So everybody can have all this for free at any time. Do not try to take the time to download all this prior to class, because that would be a bit too much. But the information for the class folder is in the link, and we'll start today with the outline. And the outline you can download in folder 1, class outline, right here. This will be the first thing that you want to download, so you want to be able to follow along with the outline all the way through the day. To give a preliminary overview even of the outline itself and this class, there are 3 separate classes that I've done. I just did the March one, and this was April, and then we'll have one in May. All 3 of these classes go along with each other. They're all connected as far as law and court is concerned. The totality of law class, we covered every different aspect and jurisdiction of law, so I will not be covering that again today, but it's finished and available for purchase if anybody would like to purchase that class. It's 3 rounds of silver mailed to the Vocational Science of Freedom P.O. Box, or a $75 donation to the PayPal of the Vocational Science of Freedom. And each class is that same amount as well. When you purchase the class, you will have access to the uploads onto YouTube, which are unlisted, but then you get the uploads, and then I'll teach you how to download them directly off of YouTube. And then you also get the links for the Mega Dropbox, which will have all of the rest of the class outlines and the handouts. So that was the March class, was the totality of law. There was a lot covered. I'm not going to rehash it today because these are all connected. I tried not to cram it in. So today, the ins and outs of court class, this will be a basic court class regarding process, an overview of same. So as far as process is concerned, how do you go to court? Are you the defendant? Are you the plaintiff? How do you serve someone? What are the things that you need to do in order to run a court case, whether you're the defendant or the plaintiff? These are all the various different things that I will cover today in the ins and outs of court. And then the May class will be the status docs in connection with how to use them in court. Because we did a separate status docs class of everything that the status docs are and what each one of them does. So that May class won't be rehashing that, but what it will be going over is how you use the doc set in the real world. How do you deal with corporations? How do you deal with corporate courts? How do you deal with anything regarding the doc set? And also the process of how to go through binding arbitration if someone ends up being served and has notice of the doc set, but then continues to administer your estate without your consent. With that little outline here, as far as my papers are concerned, and this goes for all the papers, whether it be a note or whether it be something that I've created, red means pay attention. If it's in light blue, means pay more attention. Dark blue will be the headings and the categories, and then purple means my own notes on a subject or my own opinion regarding some matter. And you'll see that this outline is color-coded in that same way. Before we begin, how to learn the law regarding this subject and the Vocational Science of Freedom Law Library. So I'm going to pull up the Law Library. Let's take a look at everything that's in here, because now I'm not going to go through these documents. I'm just making a note to show everybody how the Law Library is set up. First, books and docs to read. Click on that and open it up. We have Fruits from a Poisonous Tree. This is a must-read book about what happened in the history of America regarding money, power, rights, a legal title, war powers, and much more. It's a very, very good introduction to the criminality of what their system is. And it's written by Melvin Stamper, and it is 285 pages. And it talks about how the Constitution was set aside during the Civil War and has never been in effect since. And this is true because we are under war powers. We're under martial law, which a lot of people are not aware of, but it's the reason why the President of the United States Federal Corporation has to sign a emergency declaration to keep that emergency continuous. And it's been going on since the Civil War. So the rest of this book you can take a look at your own leisure. It had a copyright of 2008, so it goes back a little ways, but this is a book from a gentleman who is very much like me, autodidactic, and does his own research and had been at it for a very long period of time. And so here's the table of contents. And see, as you can see, citizen, expatriation, magicians, that's dealing with how they change words, collection agencies, Federal Reserve, money, above the law, the swindle, a house for free, how you really rob a big bank. This is kind of what we're doing, but in a different way now, because there's even a more severe, I guess is the best way to put it, way to attack any corporation, and that's with the Vocational Science of Freedom doc set. It gets into Lodial title and mirrors of illusion and all the rest of these stuff in war power. So it's a very, very, very important book to read. Go through it, take the time to go through it. And of course, always, if you ever have any questions about anything, you can always contact me directly on the Vocational Science of Freedom Gilded server. That's Fruits of Poisonous Tree. The next one is the court system in Freemasonry. How the secret society of the Freemasons controls all the courts for their benefit and the detriment of anyone who is not a Freemason. This was, as far as, I'm not exactly sure who the author of this is, but it's a great collection of work as far as what is the organization of the Freemasons, how you can see their symbology everywhere. Here's some of the list of the symbols, which are vast, but all of these are various different Masonic symbols. So if you see any of these symbols anywhere, you know you're dealing with some aspect of the Masons, right? So, and they keep on going. And so the court system of Freemasonry is, in Freemasonry, it, by definition, a secret society. It uses a secret system of communication to identify its members towards obtaining preferential treatment in business, policies, and every walk of life. It also utilizes a system within the courtroom to obtain favorable judgments that would not otherwise be rendered. In other words, it is a system used to corrupt the court system for its own personal advantage on a daily basis. So know that. Know that pretty much every single judge that you are going to go in front of, and that pretty much every single district attorney that ever is going to come up against you or your estate, that's usually always they're charging your estate, not you, is going to be a Mason. Now, if you really wanted to use this system against them and make them think that you are a Mason, there are certain symbols and certain things that you can do. I'm not going to get into all of them, but when you start learning about the symbols of Freemasonry, there's certain handshakes, there's certain gestures, and it would be almost impossible for me to even describe some of these things because I would almost have to have a webcam and actually show you. But needless to say, they are out there. And if you do these various different gestures when you're in court, you'll get special treatment because I've seen it happen before. Read this. It's an important book to understand how they're doing what they're doing, who they are, and some of the secrets of Freemasonry. Like some of the signs and tokens are actually in here. So you can understand how this works. Like the question about, are you a traveling man? You would reply, I am. I travel from west to east and from east to west again. You might ask, why did you leave the west and travel to the east? I would respond, in search of that which was lost, right? So there's all these various different little codes and things, whether it be speech or whether it be handshakes, that are part and parcel of the court system. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because this class is about court process. The Masons control the courts, so you'd better know their process. I'll leave that one for what it is. You guys can check it out later. And the last and most important one, as far as I can tell, as far as what's going on, is how the law merchant has infected every aspect of our law court system. And this is the Pied Pipers of Babylon. This is a book that shows exactly how the Luciferians, clearly by the cover you can tell, how the Luciferians have done everything that they can to destroy our common law court system. And it starts out, you're under foreign law, and this is a little snip from a newspaper, and it talks about as a word necessary to explain the title of the book. Babylon is a worldwide corporate trust governed by the money power of the beast of the Bible, the same conspiracy of bankers who are behind the imposition of an alien and unwarrantable jurisdiction on Americans. And that would be Roman civil law, which we covered ad nauseum in the totality of law class. Verl K. Speer, who wrote it, and he was a doctor of common law, which I don't even know if you can still get any sort of title like that anymore, but he did, and went through the Prussian education system to get it. So it tells you about the common law, your birthright, what it is. It tells you the authorized jurisdictions in American jurisprudence, which again I covered ad nauseum in the totality of law class. The law of the nature and the law of nations, compelling reasons for constitutional convention, gets into some history, what the 16th Amendment was and why we're all getting attacked by it, which is the Income Tax Act, and then also the 14th Amendment of how you became a secondary class citizen, as in a citizen of the United States who is subject to the jurisdiction of Congress and whose domicile is Washington, D.C., and some other court cases. So anyway, this is a much more extensive book as far as going through each and every trail of what the filthy Luciferian scum have done in the alteration of the court systems around the world. It's the basis of the law merchant. So always know that the law merchant system is the one that always tries to place you into commerce as some sort of slave or bonded debt slave, bondsman, it's another way to put it. And our singular most important goal has to be the removal from that system of law and ourselves inside it, and our bodies inside it, and our estates inside it, to remove ourselves, to come out of Babylon, as it was said. And there's also another aspect of this. There was, I believe it's a Bible passage. Don't ask me which one it is because I'm a Taoist. But I have a lot of Christian friends, and one of them said to me a long time ago that yes, when Babylon falls is when the people who are serving it will be tattooed on their forehead that they are of that ilk. The whore of Babylon is what I'm referring to. That's not referring to women either. You can be a male whore as well, which most of them are. When they are all tattooed with who they are, and we all know who they are, we'll be able to avoid them. And that's why that biblical aspect of that is so important, because we have to understand who these people are. We have to understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, so we can do exactly the opposite of what they're doing and stay within our own common law system and our own constitutional republic, which they wish to destroy. So that's Pied Pipers of Babylon. Very good read. I'll skip the rest of these. Obviously, there are things in here that are very important also to read for your first books. Judge Dale's book is important because this is a retired federal judge that went rogue and said, look, guys, this is what's actually happening in court. So that's a good read. The Veterans Today article on the Khazarian Mafia is extremely important to understand because it tells you who these people are, that they're not Semitic. They're basically hail from Mongolia. And this article, which is 32 pages, goes into the entire history of the Khazarian Mafia, who they are, where they came from, and that these people are not Semitic, and that they adopted the Jewish religion. They were never Jewish. They never will be. They've only used it as a disguise, because what these people do is they steal identities and then they take over nations, which is exactly what the Khazarian Empire was all about. So I won't get into reading this again, but this is an extremely, extremely well-documented and absolutely 100% correct article about who these people are. And they are Luciferian, human-sacrificing scumbags. Always have been, always will be. Here's the point. You can never be labeled as anti-Semitic because these people aren't Semitic, okay? And they never will be. So that's a good article to read and pass it on to everybody that you know. Everybody needs to understand that so that they can stop somehow having a guilt trip about exposing these people for who they are. The USA, the Republic no one lives in, this is another very, very well documented document. Let me see how many pages it is. It's 54 pages. It explains an awful lot. Again, a lot about USA, the Republic that no one lives in, are also covered in Pied Pipers of Babylon and Fruits from a Poisonous Tree, but just in a different way. But you put these three together and you can cross-reference the information that you get from each of these separate documents. It explains how we're losing everything that we thought we had, that you're taught that you have, but was taken away from you. And in some cases, how to get it back. Those are the books, first books to read. And now the law dictionaries. The law dictionaries and reference, the words and phrases. I have all the words and phrases here, so if you want to look up a word and phrase of figuring out what it is or how it's used, you have access to all of them here. And then our American system of common law and American jurisprudence. The only dictionary you ever want to use is Bouvier's 1856 edition specifically, which this is. This is the entire 1856 Bouvier's dictionary, and it's in Word doc format, so you can simply click on a letter, and if you wanted to find something, you come up here to find, and you type it in where it is, and you can find the word as many times as it is. So in G, common law comes up 23 times. So you can learn everything that's based upon American jurisprudence. And here's the point about Bouvier's. When you look at the title of the dictionary itself, it says, a law dictionary adopted to the Constitution and laws of the United States of America and of the several states of the American Union, which are the republics, with references to the civil and other systems of foreign law. Roman civil law, also known as municipal law, is foreign to us. We were never meant to have corporations running as towns and villages and counties and courts governing us. We are the sovereigns. And how they've done this is through contract and consent and more presumptions than I care to get into today. There's a whole entire class on just presumptions. You can find it on YouTube. The presumptions class on YouTube is for free. It was an all-day class. It was one of the classes that I felt was so important that I did put it up afterwards. So it's under self-government. So if you just click on the self-government playlist, rebuttable presumptions, how tyrants and black-robed priests enslaved the world. That's the whole entire title of the lecture series. And it was an all-day class. It started in the morning and ran until into the later evening. If you sit down and go through it all at once, which you can do if you want to, just listen to the whole thing once and then go back and listen to it again and then take notes, that's fine. Or if you want to systematically go through it slowly and double check the information, that's fine as well. But all the presumptions about what they're doing to us in court is covered in this class. So I just wanted to make a note of that for everybody, so you all know where to go find that information, and that the presumptions are one of the most important things that we have to worry about, and how they take control of us. So that's Bouvier's, so you guys know where it is, and that's where it's is in our system of American law. And then the next one underneath is their system. And their system of law is the law merchant, maritime amity, Roman civil law, and this would be Black's. All of Black's dictionaries, if you want to go find the law merchant stuff, you're going to find it more laid out in Black's than in Bouvier's. You want to cross-reference back and forth between these two dictionaries. And then the last thing that I have in the little library folder here is the definition of person in all 50 states. Now, I didn't compile this, but I found it, and I thought it was extremely important. And some of these may have been updated by now. I don't know. This was in 2014. So it was prepared by the Office of Legislative Legal Services, the Colorado General Assembly. So this was prepared by the Colorado legislature for them, so that they had access to what each of these things is. Now, why would they want to do that? Probably because the fact that the definition of person has nothing to do with you. Person, here you go, persons, includes a corporation as well as a natural person. The aspect of a natural person is that someone who has the capacity for rights and duties, but doesn't necessarily exercise them. Another way to put that is an infant. An infant has a capacity for rights and duties when they come of full age, but until they do, they cannot hold title. So what you are seeing is the administration of abandoned infant estates at the foundling hospitals, which is all covered in the presumption class. So I won't rehash that again. So that's the reference guide. And then go down, and the next one is complete law book sets. These I'm not even going to get into, but I'm just going to make it just to tell you. Most of the greatest books on common law will mostly all be printed before 1913, the year the filthy Kazarian mob created the Federal Reserve. But there are a few exceptions in here, one of them being the Elementary Law Smith is a very good book, which explains a lot about citizenship. Chapter 1, the nature of law, state, government, government of the United States, forms and leading systems of law, equity, enacted law, the rank and interpretation of laws, persons and rights, property, divisions of law, constitutional law, criminal law, persons and domestic relations, real property, personal property, succession, contracts, special contracts, business devices, torts, that's an important one, remedies, courts in their jurisdiction, procedure, trials, and the appendix. So as you can see, this is a very thorough overview of law, of all aspects of it. But it's only 247 pages. So it's not exhaustive in each of its categories, but it is a very, very good overview of each of these things. It's a good starting book, is basically what I'm getting at. So if you wanted a good single starting book, aside from Blackstone's, which might be a little bit difficult for someone brand new to get through, then start with this. Start with the Handbook of Elementary Law by Smith. Start with this one. It's a really good way to get going, and then you could go back and get into Blackstone's. And then some of the other things, Institutes on American Law. This volume, it was in 4 volumes before it got altered in 1870. I haven't gone through it page by page to see which it changed from being 4 volumes to being 2, but I just know that it was altered. So I always go back to the original thing. Now, they probably changed some things regarding what laws had been changed, possibly, but the Institutes of American Law by John Bouvier is probably the set of books that I would use most for references about how things are supposed to work, because it's written from a common law standpoint, is kind of what I'm getting at. As is the first edition of Amjur, which unfortunately I do not have. I don't think anybody has yet to PDF the entire first edition of Amjur. But if you ever come across it, as far as a set of books is concerned, physical books, definitely purchase the first edition of Amjur, because it has all of the connections of the constitutional issues and common law all in one place, which is probably why no one's PDF'd it yet, because to put that out into the hands of everyone would, well, as the rest of these books also do, would completely free your mind as to what is actually going on. And so the rest of these are all just large volumes of law books, and they're complete. So Modern Law in America is 15 volumes. Wade's Actions and Defenses, this is a good one because it has the understanding of when you need to take an action against someone, and then what you use as a defense if someone files an action against you. It's really good back and forth. Practice Pleading in Forms and Actions, both legal and equitable, in 3 volumes. When you find any documents that say with forms, always make sure that you get them, because the ones that have the forms are the ones that you're going to use when you start working your court process. All of these are free, so everything that says forms are the things you want to look at. A treatise on criminal law and indictments, this is for grand juries. A treatise on federal practice, that's for if you have to do a federal court. Encyclopedia of Law and Procedures, this is ridiculous. This took me a long time to find all of these, but I did eventually find them all on archive.org. But I have every single one of them here, and some of these volumes are ridiculously long in and of themselves. Like this one, just volume 34, is 1,848 pages. Just to give you an idea of how much and how huge this thing is. I don't even want to know how much it would have cost to buy the Encyclopedia of Law in its physical form. I couldn't even imagine. But someone PDF the whole entire thing, and so there it is for you. And then there's another encyclopedia of law we have on Chapman. That's only 12 volumes, but also, so these are your reference, the complete reference book sections for in the VSOF Law Library. Then the next thing is the Cornforth Pleading Library. Richard Cornforth is also someone who's like me, who has done a lot of work in helping people out, and he saved all of his motions for you. They're all in here. To strike, to stay, motion in limine, objections, quo warranto, removals, right of counsel, state motion in limine, voluntary dismissal. This pleadings library is vast, and it's a good place that if I don't have something already created, go into Cornforth Library, pull it out, alter it to your state, alter it to whatever you're doing, but it'll give you a good starting place, right? So you have the starting places now of, I wouldn't say everything, but a vast majority of whatever it is you'll need to write out. And I got that from a mentor of mine who has passed, whose name was Steve Carr from Wisconsin. He was in contact with Richard Cornforth, and they exchanged information, as I do with other teachers, which is where the vast majority of my entire hard drive comes from. It comes from me exchanging hard drives with other people like Richard Cornforth and others. So that's the Pleadings Library. Next one is the Treatise folder. So this folder contains only basic starting treatises for law. To obtain the entire VSOF library containing 300 gigabytes of information and books, you can purchase my entire hard drive for the cost listed on the VSOF price sheet. And in this treatise folder, it has the basis of basic common law treatises that go back pretty far, civil procedure, infants, elementary law. Again, this is the same one that I was just going over before, but I put it in here as well. Treatise on writs, which is a very, very important thing to understand about process, and so on and so forth. And treatise on indictments with forms, again, the aspect of the grand jury. So what is a treatise? A treatise is the canonical text, if you will, of a specific subject. So if you have like this one, Treatise on de facto, which I covered the other day in a free class a few weeks ago. So a treatise on de facto. So if you want to know what de facto is, go find the treatise on it. So a treatise on de facto doctrine in its relation to public officers and public corporations based upon the English, American, and Canadian cases, including comments upon extraordinary legal remedies in reference to the trial of title to office and corporate existence. 860 pages just on the de facto doctrine. You want to know about something in its totality? Find the treatise, and then you can learn about it, which is why I've given these as the basis of what you need to learn when you're first studying law. So that's the treatise folder. Scroll down here. I have the Jurisdictionary law course. This is not the totality of the law course. I have some of it in here, but if you want to, here's the link, and you can purchase the entire course for $250, and trust me, it is worth every penny. It will give you every single thing you need to know about as far as equity pleading and practice. So if you want one single course to cover everything, go get Jurisdictionary regarding how their system works. He will walk you through every bit of process. He will walk you through every stage, and we will cover some of his information today. But because this is not going to be a course on equity, it's going to be more of a course on common law, I will not get into too much detail as far as what's in Jurisdictionary. He's created a course. You should support him in his work because he did a fantastic job. And he keeps updates on the course on his website, I believe on a regular basis. And he put this out, I think, almost 10 years ago. So that's the Jurisdictionary class. And the rest of this information is just other things, state law folders, federal, history of America. I won't get into the rest of this, but these are just other things that I have in the law library, which I have and continue to add to from time to time. So now let's close up the law library. We might come back to some of this later if need be. But now let's open up the the April ins and outs of court class mega folder hyperlink, which for everybody that's in class, the hyperlink's in the classroom. So the class outline, obviously, this is what we're looking at. So this is going over the class outline. And I also have foundational starting books in here as well, but they're a little bit more specific than the starting books that I had in the Vocational Science and Freedom Law Library, but some of them are overlapping. Sovereign to Serf's another interesting one by Roger Sales. That's one of these other autodidactic gentlemen who has taken the time to write a book for you. Blackstone's is in here. This is the main place where I put Blackstone's for everyone so that they know to read Blackstone's. And the foundation of the understanding of law in the colonial time was Blackstone's commentary. Every single founding father had a copy of Blackstone's commentary in their house, without question. I don't even have to think about that, because all of American jurisprudence was based upon the understanding of what we had to do to keep the understanding that we were sovereign, but still not lose our law, meaning our common law. And Blackstone's will show you what that common law is from a standpoint of England and what we adopted, right? Elementary Law and Smith, again, this is the same one, talked about before. Institutes of American Law, that was the one I said before, John Bouvier, and then select essays on the history of Anglo-American law. This is a book set very much along the lines of my timeline class, which I spent all day going through the entire history of law, which is also for purchase, same as the rest of the classes are, for the same amount, for 3 rounds of silver or for $75 donation to the Vocational Science of Freedom. And as always, all lifetime members of the Vocational Science of Freedom have access to all the past classes and all the upcoming classes for free for the purchase of the VSOF entire hard drive, which I said is over 300 gigs. So that's the foundational starting books. Scroll down to the next thing, the complete law set books. These are, the link is just simply the link to the free online library. Okay, so I put the link in here back and forth, so it just takes you back to it because there was no reason to re-upload all of those books onto here. So, and then foundational common law books. These books are all just about the common law. That's it. There's nothing else in this folder but books about common law, how it works, where it came from, the fact that all the history going through from the Court of 100, pre 1066, William the Conqueror coming over and messing everything up in England. The Magna Carta, which is the basis of the common law. The Confirmatio Cartarum, which is the confirming charter. Confirming, after King John, every single king has confirmed the Magna Carta as being the common law and being in full force and effect, even if the Pope and the Vatican have a problem with it. But who cares about them? A practical treatise upon the law of writs. Again, as I said, this is a very important one to read. It'll give you all kinds of understanding about process. And the Spirit of Common Law. This is a very good one by Pound. This is 1921. It gives you an understanding of where the common law came from and its spirit. You know, how this whole thing came about. The feudal element, Puritanism in the law, courts and the crown, rights of Englishmen and the rights of man, the pioneers in the law, philosophy of law in the 19th century, judicial imperialism, legal reason, so on and so forth. So it gives you an aspect of what it is as a totality of the common law. It's only 256 pages, so. Practical treatise on the law of evidence, proofs in civil and criminal. This is a great book set. These 1, 2, 3 will help you with understanding law and evidence of what you have to put into your suits. So make sure that you come back and reference these books, particularly those 3, when you're dealing with, okay, what's the evidence that I have to put in, and what's the law that I have to put in, right? And this is going to be, I'll go over this more completely later, but I'm just going to scroll down and just to open this up to keep it into your mind, that there's only 3 things that you absolutely have to make sure are in each and every case It's the basis of all cases. Doesn't matter what jurisdiction it is. And that is facts, evidence, and the law. Make sure that whether you're writing a motion to dismiss, whether you're writing a brief for a appellate court to appeal a suit, whether you're writing an original lawsuit at law, or whether you're even writing a complaint in equity, or even if you're answering a complaint in equity, which you would never want to do, but anyway, the three things that matter the most are facts, evidence, and law. And we'll get into all those and what they are and the totality of them probably this afternoon. Back to our common law folder here. Down at the bottom here, the history of the common law, genius of the common law origin, common law, Oliver Wendell Holmes. And by the way, always read Oliver Wendell Holmes with a grain of salt, because he was kind of he was a control freak. But anyway, and that's my opinion because of the standpoint of what he did and how he changed certain things. And anyway, he was about control, which a lot of people are. But so anyway, so these books down at the bottom here, where I say the common law, these are all good history books of understanding the totality of the common law, right? So with that, let's go back and now take a look at common law process books with forms. The next folder is all of the books that you'll need that have the forms in them. So I separated those out for you guys so that they weren't hodgepodge in the middle of everything else, so you could see what it is exactly you were doing as far as finding a form, using it as a template, and then fleshing the rest of it out as to what you want to put in, and as far as what, particularly if you've done your doc set, the information of how you state your status in the beginning, which we'll cover this afternoon ad nauseum, because I want everybody to understand that when you file something, whatever it is, motion, original action, doesn't matter, even an answer, even a notice, the first thing that you want to do in that document is to state your status properly in your first paragraph. And we'll totally go over that. I have templates for it, and the templates are in here. But just for now, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that this is about status, because we're not subject to Roman civil law unless we, consent to it, or we have a contract to it. Now, if you've entered into contract with them in some way, shape, or form, then you need to break the contracts, which is what the status doc set does. It systematically goes through and takes care of all of those presumptions from the standpoint of contract, which is where the corporate Khazarian mob has taken you back from being sovereign to being a slave. When you understand the process, it's reversible. It's kind of the same idea that people think that, oh, it's difficult. Well, anything's difficult until you know how to do it. So there was a time that I didn't know anything about how a computer worked. So I went to a computer repair shop and I asked the guy, I said, hey, can you open up a computer and show me what these things do? He said, yeah, sure. And then later on, I had younger friends that went to school for building a computer, and then they taught me how to build my own computer. Before that, I had absolutely no idea, and it was just a big black box that did all these weird things. But I had no idea what was in the black box. Opening up a treatise and reading it is opening the black box. You will understand what each part of the law is. What's a motion? What's a writ? What's the answer? What's an issue? What's a tort? What's a defendant? What's a plaintiff? What's a cross complaint? All of these various different words should be looked up first in Bouvier's and then went through more systematically and deeply, word by word, idea by idea, in a treatise. Because then you'll totally understand what it is, because you'll be connecting the word into the practice. And then eventually you'll do the practice, whether it be file a suit or answer a suit. So again, I'm not going to go through all these, but here are all of the pleadings and practice with forms. American Law and Procedure, 14 volumes, 1910. That one's great because it's before the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank, 1913. Annotated Pleading and Forms of Common Law Practice, 3 volumes, 1914. Encyclopedia of Michigan Common Law. So anybody that's in Michigan, there you go, guys. You got your own set of books here. ST's actions and special proceedings, pleading and practice, good forms in there. Forms and Practice of Civil Procedure in 2 volumes, 1907. Modern American Law in 15 volumes, 1914. That's also in the VSOF Law Library. I think that is something I doubled up, but that's fine. Practice Pleading and Forms with Actions, 3 volumes. There's Iowa, so anybody's from Iowa, there you go. Waits, Actions, and Offenses, 7 volumes, 1885. This is a great one because this one's easy to follow, and they make it very specific as to how to do each thing. Handbook of Common Law Pleading, that one's good. I don't think that has forms in it, but it's a good overview of what you have to put into each filing. Treatise on the Principles of Pleading of Actions of Common Law, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to read all the rest of these, but this folder is for everything that you're going to need that has the process in it, okay, with the forms. So I'll scoot down here. Folder 2.2. This is my pleadings library, which we'll come back to later when we get back into opening up these various different things as far as specifics. But I can cover some of them now, and then what we'll do is we'll get through all of the rest of the information regarding the docs that I'm giving to everyone as far as the background of all this information is concerned, basically the library. Then we'll get into how to learn court process, and then we'll get into the actual process. So that's why I'm kind of covering all this material beforehand so that everyone knows where it is and everyone knows where to go get it. So in Zen's Collected Pleading Library, in the templates, template action at law, these will be all the templates that I have, and the ones that are in here that are of other people, I've had permission to copy and put up, but the rest are redacted. So there's templates for court headings, which is, you always want to make a template, and this is just a note about when you start to do your own law work. You want to create a template for whatever court and case you're doing, and then just make it blank. So I'll just show you how this is. A blank template, right, for verification. So this is a blank template of what you would do for a case. So you have your little thing here, and this little parentheses, little thing in the center, you make a separate column. You see how that little blue thing lit up here? So you make a separate column here so that this stays perfectly aligned, or else you're going to have problems when you type on either side of it. So you make a separate column, and then you write on one side, the case number. What is the thing? So it would be, say, motion to dismiss would go here, right? And you can put it in all caps if you want, doesn't matter. Or answer to plaintiff's action, whatever's going on here. And then you say verified, attested, and sealed. You just leave these 3 things here because at the end you have a verification, which is counter plaintiff has personal knowledge of the above stated facts and is competent to testify as to the truth of these facts if called as a witness. Counter plaintiff declares under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States of America, not of the United States, because this tells them, even in a verification, you can deal with status. But anyway, so this tells anybody who reads this that this is under the United States of America, not the United States. That the foregoing is true and correct, and that this, whatever it is, motion, thing, document, action, was executed on the land in the county of wherever, on such and such day, so on and so forth. And then teste mipso is a little thing that you put at the end, and this just simply means that you're self-testifying. So John Henry, House of Doe, which would be your name with your house in here. Sovereign of the court, holder of the seal of this court, with said seal thereof, hereunto affixed, attested by his own hand, or be her own hand, who stands upon the land of the Republic of Illinois, or whatever state you're domiciled in, wherever you have your court at, this such and such day of so on and so forth. And then John Henry, House of Doe, state dignitary. If you're a woman, it's mater familias, and then if you're a man, it's pater familias. So that's the male, and then the female is mater familias. One of the people of, again, whatever the state is, so this state matches that, and that you're the plaintiff or the defendant or whoever, whatever you are down here. So you leave this as a template. So when you're going along and creating your document, and I put little things in here for this kind of to be a general thing, but there would be different sets in here depending on what it is. So it comes now, your opening paragraph, introduction, what are we doing? Facts, law, conclusion, demand for relief, and then if there's anything else that you need, which is basically just the verification. So this is your basic template. So you have whatever it is, you fill these out, it's all nice and done, and you keep these separate. So you have a blank one, and then when you go to create whatever it is, a motion for whatever, just come up here to file, hit save as, and then save it as whatever the name of the actual document that it actually is, so that you're making. Motion to dismiss, action to trespass, whatever. And so that you keep your template blank. save over your template, you keep your template blank, and you just save your document. And I've got another one here for state of Iowa for an affidavit. There are the other templates, actions of account, which is a common law action, court of record templates. These are all color coded. So there's templates that I even have that are color coded regarding how to set up an entire case. Now this is an action at law. And again, this is color coded with the notes. So red, you either have to change things in here or just pay attention to, and then purple is the notes to fill it out. We'll go through the totality of this later. I just wanted to show you guys where this was at, so you'd understand what was going on here as far as the layouts are concerned. So the templates are there. Templates for counterclaim are there. Example cases are also in there for not redacted, meaning whole entire cases. And the one that I have in there, and there's more of them that I'll add in here later, but the one case that I have in here that's completely not redacted is the Tresevant case from Florida. And this is where a man was awarded $65,000 per hour for unlawful imprisonment. So it's kind of an interesting case to look at. So there's David Tresevant, and it says the entire docket of everything that was filed, when it was filed, the back and forth, what the orders were, answer, what it was, right? As you can see, the docket goes on for quite a while. This is what you're going to have, right? So this is the back and forth and the back and forth and the back and forth of court. And then you finally get into the case. But so it's the whole entire case copied directly from Tampa and put into a PDF. So you guys can see what a winning case looks like. Even in equity, yes, you can win. There were common law issues brought up in this case, but it was filed as you would file against a city or a county or a cop, whatever, in an equity proceeding. So it's slightly different than how you would do it at law. And I'll get into the differences of how an at law case is laid out compared to how a court in equity is run. Next thing is Franco Collins. This is how to establish your living standing in court. There are different ways to do this. There are ways that I do it where are slightly different than this. I establish my standing right in the beginning of the case, where as soon as the judge says, state your name for the record, well, then I instantaneously have a different set of things that I say. But this is how Franco Collins would do it. And this is how you shut down the various different jurisdictions as far as maritime admiralty and UCC and commercial, and then finally ecclesiastical, or on their side, the Talmudic garbage. So, Your Honor, I'm a living being. I wish for remedy. At this point, if you have behaved in honor and respect, you may be dismissed, but the judge is not out of options. He can leave the court and re-enter, now in a higher court under canon maritime admiralty jurisdiction. So you must establish your standing again, but in a higher manner. Your Honor, I am a living being. Now, I would say, Your Honor, I come before the court as having been found to be living. That's how I would say it. And I say, I wish for, and you say, I wish for remedy. And then the second one, I wish for cure and maintenance. And then the final one, I'm a sovereign and nothing stands between myself and the divine. That's how Frank used to say it. And a lot of people had success in doing that. I take care of things before I ever get into a situation where I have to rely on what I say in court to win or lose. There's just no point not to, because you can file everything, you can say all this long before you ever cross that filthy bar onto their dry dock ship, which is exactly what it is. So I wanted to include it though, because Frank's someone I've learned an awful lot of information from over the years, and I had lost the recording where he recorded this a long time ago. But then I found it again. And so what I did was I specifically typed it all out so that everybody could have it, so that I didn't lose it a second time. Yes, you can dismiss things just by your voice in court. But like I said, you got to know what you're saying. And you got to know what you're doing. That's the template for that. And next is the templates for a contempt court hearing from 1215. This is what you do when you're running your own court of record. You started your own court. It's a court of record. You're the plaintiff. You're suing somebody. And say someone gets out of line. Say the magistrate gets out of line. So what can you do about it? In a court of record, the tribunal is independent of the magistrate. And because of that, the tribunal is the one that makes the decisions. If the magistrate gets out of line, who controls him? You do. you control the magistrate. How do you control the magistrate? By contempt hearing. You say, you're following some other foreign law in this court. I don't know what you're doing. And you somehow have the misconception that you're in charge here. You don't. So now you get to answer my contempt hearing charge as to why you think you're in control here. And that's pretty much what this template does from 1215, which is Bill Thornton's website. I won't get into this in its totality, but just to tell you guys that it's here. Next one is a traffic demur. A demur is where you agree to all the facts, but you disagree to the law. This is an actual filing. You can go look up the case if you want to in Oregon. And so it said, this is a document that's kind of demur. He agrees to the facts, but not the law. If you do not wish to agree to the facts, nor agree to the jurisdiction, I would not place a letter like this into the court record. However, there is merit in this working for certain cases, i.e. traffic. When you deny both the law and the facts, and if you disagree with all of the facts, meaning there's not a single fact that you stipulate to, meaning agree is correct,